Welcome back, listeners, to the Living Fabulously Fierce podcast. This episode, we are here with our next guest. So, for those watching, I will now hand it over to our guest to introduce herself.
Great. Thank you so much, Farah. My name is Fabi Arevalo. I am currently based in Boston, and I am currently the CFO of two amazing footwear brands, Sperry and Keds, which are part of the larger portfolio of footwear brands at Wolverine Worldwide. On a professional perspective, I've always been in finance, and I've had the blessing of having the opportunity of worked for various iconic fashion brands like Nike and Levi Strauss and great retailers like Nordstrom. But on a personal level, I was born in Guatemala and I was raised in various countries in Latin America, but I have the privilege of calling Boston my home now.
Awesome. Iconic brands indeed. And I have some questions around that for you as we dive in. But one of the questions we're always curious to get a response on is when you think about the space in which you're having an impact, how would you describe that?
Yeah, so I think up until about a year ago, my focus was really about making an impact, like in my career, in my field, in my industry, and my job really used to be an integral part of my identity. And I was always looking for opportunities to continue to move up the corporate ladder, really living this mantra of, put yourself in situations that will put you outside your comfort zone and, fake it till you make it mentality. And this really kind of led me to take a lot of risks in my career. And with those risks, of course, came great rewards. And I think that when COVID hit, my priorities really changed, and my focus on making an impact has really shifted, really more of towards a focus of being in service to others. And I think probably the pandemic did that to a lot of people, meaning it really forced us to evaluate or reevaluate what was important to us and where we really wanted to spend our time to make an impact. So today, as I think about it, I've really tried to pivot and focus my efforts on being more active in my community and external leadership groups, or even within my own company, focusing on mentorship opportunities and really trying to give back more. And I've deprioritized, trying to move up the corporate ladder and trying to pivot more towards finding things that are personally for me more meaningful.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Fabi. You shared something right at the beginning about, having worked in all of these iconic brands. Was that an intentional launch and path of your career, or was that happenstance or something in between?
Yeah, I think it was definitely not intentional, I would say. I think as I started out in my career, I literally accepted the first job that gave me, that was presented to me right out of college. I was an international student. It was very difficult for international students to get a job in the US unless you had sponsorship and all these things. And so the first company that was able to kind of offer me that opportunity, I went all for it. And I was fortunate enough that this was a really great company. It was TJX. It was a big retail company. And I really fell in love with retail and everything that retail had. And then, as I started, pursue, after I got my MBA and I started thinking about, what else I could do, what else I wanted to do. I think being in Boston, there's a lot of great companies and great brands here. So I got my foot in the door at Converse, and that kind of, that's a really iconic brand, and, great corporate culture, part of this Nike conglomerate. And then from there, it just kind of, led me to other paths as well. But I think as I think about my career as well, I was very intentional. I knew I loved retail. I knew when I moved to Nordstrom, I knew I wanted to work, like I was very intentional about my move to Nordstrom as well, because I knew they had this great reputation of like omni-channel and great customer service. And, I said, I want to learn from the best. And so that's kind of how I kind of focused my energy in my career, really focusing on, those brands that I thought were doing the best in their field, depending on what I was interested at the time. So yeah.
I love that because what you honed in on is one of our pillars with living with AIM is being intentional. And even where you landed with wanting to work with the best or for the best, that was really intentional. And something that stood out in the beginning that you said, you pointed to, part of your mantra that you lived by is be a risk taker, and to hear that and then see and hear your path, what was most consistent for you in being a risk taker that has now led to, just where you are is unbelievable. CFO of 2 large brands, right? And it's hugely successful in terms of your journey. When I hear you talk about risk taking, what is the, I guess, Fabi formula around that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has been pretty consistent in my risk taking is that I've always, like I said initially, it was always about kind of pushing myself outside my comfort zone, and trying new things. So when I left Boston to go to Seattle, it was a huge risk that I took. I didn't know anybody in Seattle. It was a huge company. I was working in a team, in a function within finance that it was completely new to me. And I think the one thing that I learned is that, you don't always have to be the smartest person in the room, the one that has the most technical expertise in something. It really is about surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you and really driving and motivating and empowering them to help them be successful, because that in turn will make you successful. And I've lived by that formula consistently throughout my career. I've had a lot of opportunities. Even 3 years ago, when I was with Levi's, they gave me this, they wanted to send me down to South America to integrate, to acquire our business down there. And even though I was born in Latin America, I have never worked in Latin America, and culturally it's very different. Speaking Spanish, on a personal level with your family is very different than speaking Spanish in a professional level. There's, especially in finance, lots of technical terms and ways of doing things. I didn't know anything about, tax laws in the countries that I was supporting or anything like that. And it was one of these things where I knew I wasn't going to be the expert. I wasn't going to be the technical expert in the room. Everybody there was going to know way more than I was. But I thought to myself, how can I be a successful leader for this team, and really make a difference, and have a legacy in this new role, without being this expert or being perfect in all the technical aspects of my role. And I think one thing that I have tried to be consistent across every time I take on a new career opportunity is really focusing on the team and how I can empower that team, how I can make that team stronger, how I can help them, be a thought partner, and be more of having that type of influence. And that, to me, I think has been a really successful formula that has helped me, move to different companies, different roles, just knowing that I don't have to be the technical expert, as long as I'm a good partner, thought partner, and good leader to my team. That's really the winning formula for me.
I love that. And I also hear a lot of giving yourself grace in the process of learning. You said something that stood out, and you said it twice. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You have other people around you who have smarts that you can also learn from. And you have things that you add to, quote unquote, the room, if you will. And so I think that's such a good reminder for all of us, especially I always say, if I'm the smartest person in the room, then I actually do not belong there, because every room should be about learning.
Yes.
And so to hear that as part of your intentional mode of growth too, is really empowering with a whole lot of grace. So that is super, super helpful. one of the things that I've always appreciated about you and your journey is it always looks like you're just ready to explore something new. And most people think, oh, try something new. Yeah, let's go ziplining. But you literally have, I think, many, 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 many times just picked up and gone to different places, just nationally, globally, internationally. How, and I'm really asking tactically here, how do you get over the fear and just jump in and go on so many levels in different ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to think about everything as kind of like a new adventure, kind of like, reading. It's like when you're reading a really great book and you finish one chapter, you're just really excited about flipping the page and going on to the next one. And I really thrive on learning new things and experiencing new things, every year when when we don't have COVID travel restrictions and those types of things, I always say, like, I want to go to a country that I've never been to before. I'd rather go to somewhere I've never been to before versus going to the same place all the time. And I think it's just having a really great support network as well. My spouse is also, very willing and eager to just, jump on a plane and go wherever we need to go. I think that has made it a lot easier for me to embark on all these great, crazy career adventures, because I know that I have that support system in my family and in my friends who are always encouraging. And I know that no matter where I am, and thank God for technology and Zoom and those types of things, that the world does feel a lot smaller regardless of where you are around the world. And so I think, and everywhere that I've ever gone, it's, initially there's always this challenge, you feel homesick the first couple of months, and then when it gets time to leave and go to the next place, you do feel like, this really sense of sadness, like, oh no, my time here is over. But you really take away those amazing memories and experiences, and friendships that you've built in different companies and different places around the world. And those are forever. So yeah, I mean, because I've, you always try to make the most of every experience that you get. It just motivates you to jump onto the next one.
And you said that before, jump into the next, like both of you, I always feel like you're just ready to jump, and you go, and you, like, every time you post about a new adventure, it's not subtle. Like you guys go full fledged and I love it. And so I appreciate that so much. And I've always been curious, and I don't know that it's a fair ask or an easy question to answer. Do you have a favorite place?
Oh my goodness, that is a great question. I we really, really enjoyed our time in California. And I think some of that had to do with, I think it was just the place where literally within a month of landing there in the Bay Area, I felt like, oh my God, I've lived in so many cities, and I feel like this is the one place where, like, I instantly felt at home after just living there for a month. And I think it had to do with just, the diversity of the people there, and just it was such a beautiful, beautiful area, beautiful place. Like, in terms, we love to go hiking, and it's just like it had a lot of things to offer that really helped balance my professional life with, like, my personal, like, things that I like to do. And so it felt like a really, really great place. The attitude, the culture, everything just felt really, really great. So that I would say was the one place that we really enjoyed and settled in super quickly.
Wow, that's amazing. And so one of the things you also pointed out, as you reflect now on California as well, is that COVID had you refocus on other priorities in addition to work. What would you say right now is a priority, or are priority areas for you that you're focusing in on?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think COVID really helped us, really focus on the things that are the most meaningful in our lives. And I think before, my career was one of the most important things in my life, and everything I did, moving around the country, moving around the world, was in pursuit of just, what was this career thing that was going to motivate me and drive me. And I really found fulfillment in that. I think once, COVID hit, you start to realize, maybe career really isn't as important. At least at that time, that's what it felt like to me. I really wanted to be closer to family, closer to friends. I thought to myself, how can I, how can I, kind of bring that in, but still continue to, not just being closer to family and friends, but really find meaning in the things that I am able to give back to people. And so it really, at that point, we kind of made the decision, like, let's go back to Boston. I wanted to take on a role that, allowed me to, when I was interviewing for jobs and knew I was coming back to Boston, I really wanted to make sure that whatever the next step was in my career, that my new company, my new organization would be able to provide me with the flexibility of doing things outside of the office and getting more involved with leadership and like personal development opportunities and mentorship opportunities. And I made sure that that was something that they knew was very important to me. Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to find, an organization and a leader and a boss that really encourages that in her team as well. Encourages them to, speak in panels and find mentorship opportunities and go to workshops and do all these things to really help develop yourself. And she values that, and my company values that as much as, just the day-to-day grind. And so that to me was very important. And I think, and I find that to be more fulfilling in my life. Just being able to, help women, in their leadership journeys. That to me, it's like, I feel like I've been very fortunate to have success in my career. And I want to make sure I kind of give back and bring other women with me on that journey.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of bringing other women along with you in your journey, there's someone you've been carrying throughout, which is yourself. One question I'm always curious about when you think of the self that was Fabi 20 years ago, what piece of insight or wisdom do you have now in all of your fabulous experiences and in all of your growth and ongoing learning that you absolutely want her to have?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as I think about, I don't really think I don't regret anything that I've ever, any action or anything that I've ever done in my past to like think to myself, oh my goodness, if only I could go back in time and tell myself, but I think one of the things that I would say is, it is, despite of all the different places and companies and cities and every place that I've lived. And, I think it's just very, very important to be good and to be kind to everybody that you meet. And that there's going to be people out there that you disagree with or that you might clash with, but, never ever, write them off. I think it's always important to continue to maintain strong, positive relationships with people, because you never know when your paths will cross again in the future. And there's this there's a quote by Maya Angelou, which I think is probably super, everybody quotes it and everybody says it, but I truly live by this mantra. And it's, like, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I do live by that every single day. And I think that people will cross paths and like ships ships sailing through the ocean. But I do feel if you are able to make a positive impression and make people feel good, people will remember you and will help you, even years later. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say that, you've been living by that every day. And, previously you pointed to the mantras that you lived by, as it relates to your career. There is clear intention in all that you do. And my question for you on this is, part of this is you can have your intention and you have to remember to be consistent about application of that intention. And it's clear that you're consistent. For us, we call that masterful execution in the Living Fabulously Fierce community. How do you maintain masterful execution or consistency on these intentions of yours?
Yeah, I mean, I think think at the end of the day, like you have to make sure that you don't let the little things bother you, and you always have to continue to look forward and be able to tune out the noise. And so I think if I think about like even just like little routines that I do to just keep myself focused and consistent, just I always block time for myself, block time for like reflection, just alone time, and do whatever you think that you need to do to kind of fill your tank. And whether it's like listening to your favorite music or going out for a long walk and all those types of things, I really think it's important to just be able to give yourself that time to kind of just disconnect. And I think if you're able to kind of do that, and you'll really be, if you're able to like fill your soul and your mind, I think that's just a really, that to me is a way to effectively kind of like masterfully execute, in terms of, what you want to achieve.
Yeah, that's been a recurring theme with a number of our guests right now. Candice Gray, her artist name is Candy Fox, pointed out to us in her episode that soul refilling time. And that's what you're getting, that time alone to fill your cup, to refuel, because that's the way that you're not letting the little things get to you.
Yes.
That's the way you're not letting the little things be noise and carrying that with you. So to hear you reinforce that, especially as a busy leader, as a busy executive, a busy just person, you're not just a professional, you're a person who has a family, you lead in your family, so all of those things, it's so critical to hear you say that, because it reinforces the importance of it. So thank you for sharing how you apply masterful execution here. And with that, one of the things that we always land with is, how do you hold yourself accountable to all these intentions, to operating with masterful execution? The question for you here is, when you think of how you hold yourself accountable, for me, it's always, like we were talking a little earlier, for me, today is a whirlwind of a day. It's kind of crazy. And it's easy to get thrown off a little bit, but all I have to say is living fabulously fierce. And that reminds me, authenticity, intention, masterful execution. And today it's also, don't let them drive you crazy. Let them be crazy. Maintain your sanity, like all the things. So if you had to think of one word that helps you hold yourself accountable to all these things you're pointing to, what would be Fabi's word if we were completing the phrase living fabulously blank?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the word would be balanced. I mean, living fabulously balanced, because there's that saying, you work hard and then you party hard. And I feel like for me, that's always been a good formula. Like, you can put a lot of effort and into your work and your career, but you have to make sure to, have that, be able to draw the line and say like, okay, I'm putting pause, I'm blocking out my calendar, I'm shutting off my phone, and I'm going to focus on this, and be able to have that balance in everything that you do, not just through your work and your life, but even now in my career, you have to be able to say like, when is it too much, and when do I need to scale back and focus on other things that are more important. And so just being able to find that balance, because you don't want to be tipping over more on one side than another. And so you can live a fabulous life as long as you maintain balance in the things that you believe are important to you at that moment in your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I appreciate about that too is the phrase is usually, we work hard, we play hard. And I love that you made it, no, we party hard, because you
That's right.
So back in the spirit of like literally jumping in full-fledged, no, we don't just play, we party. And I love that. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like us to know, or insight you wanted to share that we didn't get to, that you'd like to highlight?
No, I mean, I think everybody will, I think it's important for all women out there. I've really been trying to like, find that balance in my life, and help women. And I think we're all in this kind of same journey together, all of us women kind of helping each other and lifting each other up. And so just my advice to everybody, just make sure that you find that one thing that really makes you happy, and make sure that like in all your in the very limited time we all have in our crazy lives, just encourage women out there to really find that one thing that makes them, that fills their cup, and set aside that time to do it, and it'll just give you that one little boost of energy that'll keep you going and being successful. So
Fabi, you rock. Thank you. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate all that you shared with us today, especially the highlights of even just your journey. It's not something we take for granted here. So thank you with deepest gratitude.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, Farah.
Of course. Yeah. And so listeners, thank you for tuning in. We're going to check out from this episode. Viewers, you can always rewind and play anything back that you'd like to review again. But until next time, have a fabulous week ahead and stay fierce.